Have you ever felt you're just hitting the same keys again and again and not getting anywhere? Everyone has ups and downs with their piano practice. Here are 8 simple tips I want to share with you that helps me to keep my piano passion alive, especially when I manage to hit several of these. Sometimes the solutions are right in front of your eyes. They're easy to do, but we tend to forget to do them. Number 1, vary up your practice. Imagine eating the same food every day for all 3 meals. You get bored, wouldn't you? Unfortunately, this is how most people practice their piano. They practice their piano pieces over and over and over again and sort of never really question what exactly they want to get better about it. There are a few really easy ways to change up your practice so that your practice feels maybe a little bit more like a game rather than this kind of like mindless, oh, I have to practice piano, so I'm just going to go and run over my notes. First thing I always recommend my students to do, regardless of their level, is hand-separate practice. The justification for hand-separate practice is, as you know, playing piano with 2 hands is quite a difficult task. So when you master the right hand part and then master the left hand part separately, putting it together is significantly easier. Often I realize so many weak parts about my playing when I practice hands separately. For example, in this very beautiful piece, the Passacaglia, which I recommend everyone to try, I used to always kind of mess up, and I still do mess up at this little part here. This part. So this particular transition, this particular octave transition, and it was through hand-separate practice did I like kind of even realize, oh, it is this part that's causing me all the time to kind of trip there. So hand-separate practice allowed me to realize that, and then I could sort of hone in on that problem. And I practiced that very, very much. To the point where now it is much, much harder for me to make a mistake because I've identified, diagnosed, and fixed the problem. Feels natural for my hand. One of the main objections with hand-separate practice is, if I don't need to play them hand separately when I'm performing it, why the heck would I need to practice them hand separately and sort of waste time doing that? Why don't I just skip straight ahead to hands together? I totally understand that, but as you know, playing piano is a very difficult task. Sometimes you need to just kind of break down what your brain needs to comprehend, like break down the cognitive load that your brain needs to do. Do one hand, master it, do the second hand, master it, then put it together, and everything will just become so much better. Even if you're a really busy adult and you feel like, oh, I don't have time to like, I'll do 5 minutes for the right, do 5 minutes for the left before I put them together. Even if you just want to do, for example, one hand. I often find that practicing even just one hand, let's say the right hand, will inevitably help the left hand to play better when you're playing your actual piece, because by practicing, let's say, the right hand more, by getting this a little bit more into autopilot, a little bit less thinking, when you're then playing together, it's almost like I can allocate more RAM and more memory space to think about the left hand. And so that helps playing the entire piece much, much better. So please don't forget this, piano students, even practicing just single hand without the other hand is going to help the entire piece when you put them together. Next way to vary it up is slow practice. Now, slow practice doesn't always mean just like play the whole thing a lot slower. It sometimes can mean just slow down in the parts that you need to maybe just take some time to think a little bit more to not make a mistake. So for example, when I first started learning this piece, I found that one difficult part that kept tripping me up was the changing of the chords. So for example, changing this to D minor and change to G to C. So I literally practiced like that. So I would play, let's say, in the parts that I know well, I will play it fast or at concert speed. And then in the parts that I need to kind of like just think and slow down, I would do that. Take a bit of time to think, put your hands in the right spots. Put your hands in the right spots. When we practice like that, obviously when we're doing this, we ignore rhythm for a second, we ignore pulse for a second, but at least we're actually playing the correct notes, we're playing the right notes and building the right muscle memory to actually execute this piece successfully every time we play it. I want you to vary up your practice with pedal-less practice as well. Now this one, very challenging for a lot of people because it maybe doesn't like sound as nice to do it without pedal. I find that doing pedal-less practice has two big benefits for me. Firstly, it helps me to kind of allocate more brain power to my two-handed coordination. Obviously, when you're playing with a pedal, you're using left hand, and sort of like right leg, so 3 limbs. By taking the right leg away, I can focus a little bit more on these 2 hands. Doesn't sound as good, it doesn't have that kind of like amazing pedaled, romantic ambient sound, but I often just like turn it into a game. So when I'm practicing pedalless, I kind of think about it as like, I don't know, Guitar Hero or something like that, where I'm trying to play absolutely all the notes accurately. The second benefit it gives you is that it really helps you to work on true legato. So for example, to join everything, obviously from chord to chord, you can't really join that because there was a huge gap. The next one, because of this huge gap, you can't join. But everything else you want to try to join. You want to try to do legato. Another quick way to vary it up is rhythmic variations. So a really quick one I want to show you today is just long, short, long, short. So you can do something like this. So I was doing long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short instead of the usual. In this variation, you would do like this. Doing this variation will test your coordination at another level because some parts require more. It's kind of like easy and hard at the same time because some parts you get more of a brain break and in some parts you really don't get a brain break because it's long, short, long, short. So between each short and long note, you have to change notes very, very quickly. I find that doing these things vary up my practice. So instead of just kind of running through very mindlessly, I have a few different ways to practice this piece that stress tests different things. It helps me to improve the overall execution of the real piece. Tip number 1 took a bit longer than I thought because I have so much to say about that, but let's move to tip number 2, which is try to change your scenery. I find that sometimes if I'm experiencing boredom in piano, changing up my setup or my place can really do wonders to refresh my brain. When I was studying music at college, there were lots of different practice rooms with different branded pianos and different room acoustics, and I found that just playing in different rooms always kind of like kept my mind very active. I always played a game with myself of trying to, let's say, sound really, really nice in every room on the different pianos. Seriously, try it. Next time, let's say you're at a piano shop or something, just go and play a few different pianos. You'll realize that even just hearing a slightly different sound, or even if it's just testing and touching a different kind of hammer touch on a different piano or a different keyboard, it helps to kind of make you see your piano piece in a new light. Some tips I have for you for changing your scenery, and I want to kind of respect, maybe not everyone has the affordability in terms of like, let's say money or the time or the effort to do this, but I recommend you to try it. So perhaps it's as simple as moving your keyboard or your piano to a separate part of the house, okay, with a slightly different room acoustic. Maybe it's to practice piano at your friend's place or a kind of a public piano, or rent a nearby practice room. Try this one out if you haven't already. If you've been sort of like playing the same piano in the same part of the house with the same kind of like setup around you, it can get a little dull after a while. Try to change it up. Change it up every now and then. And then what you realize is when you come back to your original setup, you kind of have like a new appreciation for it. Point number 3 is to set clear goals every time you practice. Now, lots of people fall into the trap, as we said before, of just kind of sitting on the piano and practicing mindlessly. If I asked you, what exactly do you want to achieve in today's practice session, what would you say to that? I find in the times that I'm sort of like really on fire with piano, I often have very, very tangible goals. And in the times that my piano fire has sort of died down and I'm having kind of a low few weeks, those kind of weeks are when I'm sort of like not really disciplined with myself with what I want to achieve with piano. So I want you to set very specific goals about what you want to achieve in this session. Let's say perhaps it's mastering a very, very difficult passage. Maybe you want to improve on your tempo consistently. Maybe it's just wanting to improve on sight reading. Today, I want to read 2 new pieces, and by the end of that session, I want to feel like I've sort of developed some skills in sight reading. Maybe it's working on scales and arpeggios. Like today I want to learn one new scale, today I want to learn one new arpeggios, or today I want to be better at coordinating my fingerings for my scales. If you're someone that finds kind of like setting goals before a practice a bit difficult to do, you just kind of like want to go with the flow, I totally understand this, by the way. You can try the documentation on the opposite side, which is after you've done your piano practice, which moves on to my point number 4, which is to reflect on your progress. So if you're someone that doesn't really like to set kind of like goals at the start, try to do your documentations after. I've done this before where I've practiced and I kind of didn't really have super clear goals at the start, but then at the end, I make sure to write in my notes what I actually improved in that session. There's something really magical about documenting something, and then when you document something, it becomes something real rather than just living in your head. Literally write it out. Write it out that you can play from bar 1 to bar 10 without stopping anymore. Write that in a diary. I can play now from bar 1 to bar 10 without any mistakes. That's an achievement. Write it down, document it. Point number 5 is to use technology. So I have 2 to share with you today. The first one is the Forest app. This is something I use to kind of like track my practice hours. And it also helps me to, ironically, use my smartphone, to put my smartphone away whilst I'm practicing. So the idea is you set a timer for, let's say, half an hour, and in that half an hour, a tree will grow in your Forest app. And if you were to exit that app and go to Facebook or something, the tree will die. So by clocking in lots of these half an hour sessions or 1 hour sessions, you will have lots of these different trees in your forest. And after about a week or a month, you sort of see this very, very beautiful forest that's filled with different trees that you grew as a result of your concentrated efforts without the smartphone. Highly recommend it. I think it sort of gamifies a little bit of my practice, helps me to stay on track. Me and a lot of people on this channel, we love sort of practicing our rhythm, practicing keeping our songs and pieces in beat. I've been recommending my metronome watch, and I still do, to my students. You might want to give this a try if you haven't already. This is the Soundbrenner metronome watch. The idea is you can set a beat or quickly tap a beat, and it will vibrate on your wrist, or you can sort of strap it around your shoulders, and it will give you a haptic vibration beat rather than sort of hearing a really annoying clock sound, which is what happens with traditional metronomes. So useful to be able to feel this beat on my wrist and to keep in beat with it. Number 6 is to play other pieces. If you are someone that is feeling like, okay, I've played my 2, 3, 4 piano pieces and I'm sort of like, I find myself on repeat loop, I'm just playing these things and not venturing outside of this. If you are my piano student, I will be giving you a hard time about it. So a piano player should not just know how to play 2, 3, or 4 songs. You need to be playing way more, okay? So if you are at the single digit, you need to aim for knowing how to play at least about 10 pieces. And if you're above 10, just aim for the next 10. So 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. I get this all the time. I practice a piece and after a while, you know, the brain does what it does. It gets a little bit bored of the piece. Move on to something else. Go to YouTube, maybe listen to Rossiu, some of the awesome piano channels out there. Listen and get inspired with a new piece you want to learn and go and learn it. And it's really funny. Often when you go and learn something else, your mind gets refreshed, your mind becomes curious again. And once you kind of like play that a while, and when you come back to the old piece, you get a renewed energy for the old piece. Number 7 is regular breaks and do other things. Depending on the person you are, you want to think about how long is best for you to practice piano. Is it better to do, let's say, half an hour chunks, let's say twice a day? Or is it better to do 1 hour chunk once a day? For some people I'm working with, I find that the smaller chunks tend to work because they do half hour, they sort of take a break, and whilst they're doing other things, they're cooking or they're doing live or they're working, the piano pieces are kind of in the background getting processed. And in the second session where they come back to the piano, they find they're playing a little bit better the second time. Important to do other things too, like keeping myself busy with a few things like reading or playing sport. I play badminton and I go to the gym. I find that by keeping my activities varied, all of my activities tend to remain interesting all the time. So when I play piano and I'm starting to get a little bored, I go to the gym and I have a really, really awesome time there because it's something very, very different to piano. And in a very funny way, after I finish gym, let's say when I come back to piano, I enjoy the piano very, very much because it's something very, very different to the gym. I always recommend exercise to a lot of my piano students. I'll recommend it to you too, of course, but it doesn't have to be exercise. But I want you to maybe try to think about what other activities you can do alongside piano, selfishly, to keep the piano interesting. Last one I'll give you today is to incorporate rewards. So regardless of your age or your gender or your ethnicity, Our brains are all the same. Our brains crave rewards. So next time you finish a half-hour session or 45 minutes or an hour session, make sure you reward yourself, right? Treat yourself to a nice meal, buy yourself something nice. Don't break the bank, of course. But when you reward yourself with something like that, you're gonna kind of like trick your brain to want to practice piano next time. And you don't need to kind of like treat yourself something nice all the time. If you find yourself in a bit of a piano rut, maybe just doing it for 3 times can sort of kickstart that habit back again. And we've come to the end here. Let me know in the comments how you personally avoid boredom with piano. We have loads of content on this channel all about piano. Go and check them out. I'll catch you in the next one.